All right, team. Up next on the Second Chance podcast, you're going to hear from Mark O'Brien. Mark O'Brien is from Ireland. He is a footballer, um, played for his country's team, made his way over into Wales, where he became a professional footballer at the age of 15. And he ended up with a heart condition that he had to have um, open heart surgery at 16 years old. And just a story of an athletic performance and overcoming not only one, but two open heart surgeries, and just an amazing story. So I'm excited. I'm excited to introduce you all to him, and I'm excited for him to share his story. So let me know what you think. We've been talking, just kind of getting to know each other a little bit leading in, and this is going to be one I think it's going to leave us all kind of scratching our heads just about life and what this guy has been through. Mark O'Brien is up next on the Second Chance podcast, and he, as soon as you hear him talk, you're going to know when I say the word football, we're not talking about wearing helmets and pads. We're talking about what we refer to as soccer in the U.S., but it's football in every other place of the world. But Mark, your journey from leaving Ireland at 15 years old to play professional football. Listen, everyone, surviving two open heart surgeries and building a new life as now as a speaker, author, is truly inspiring, man. I've been following you and looking at all your stuff, but can you take us back and take a look at those early days and just share what motivated you to pursue that your challenging journey and what I know the football part, but how it all kind of took us here. I'm
Yeah, like
forward, man. I'm telling you, I'm excited.
yeah, no, like literally growing up in Ireland, it was like a normal upbringing. It was literally it was me, me brother, me mom, and me dad, and obviously I have like a big Irish family, like aunties, uncles, cousins, but it was just a normal upbringing. And again, like you'd play out on the streets and you'd kick a ball out in the streets and then you'd go and play other different games. I used to skateboard when I was younger. So like it was just literally the normal stuff, everybody out on the street. And as time was going on, when I was around 8 or 9, I started to join into football because my older brother played ahead of me. So I just, anything he done, I wanted to do. And once I started playing, I just started to enjoy it. I started to play and train with with my local side. And as we were training, the manager liked me, so wanted me to play there. And it was just as time just was going on, and I just was loving every minute of it. And I couldn't think of anything other than I just love football. Like football is all I want, and football is all I cared about. And everything else just kind of like fell into place. So as years were going past and I was starting to get like little different accolades, let's say, where I got to play for me country when I was 15 years old, 14, 15, I got to play for Ireland. And getting to do those things then allowed English teams to come over and start scouting me. And they can take you over and bring you on a trial, and you go on a trial. And when you go over there, you stay there for a week, and then you see, like, they have a look at you. You see if you like it, they see if they like you. And I was lucky enough that I had the opportunity to go to like Manchester City. I got to go to Liverpool. I got to go to Blackburn Rovers. And in all those teams, I was kind of always thinking, yeah, no, I love this, but nothing ever kind of clicked and it didn't feel like home. But I remember I had an opportunity to fly to Derby County when I was 14 years old. And once I flew away to Derby, it was something where the place just felt like a home from home. Like that was massive to me. I think being Irish, it's like you're always very family orientated and you don't want to leave home and you don't want to leave your family. And I think just somewhere that felt comfortable for me was like a big deal. And to be honest, I think because it was for football, I could have moved halfway around the world, to be honest. Like realistically, to have the opportunity to think that I could play football every single day of my life and to get to train every day and play games every day. Like there was nothing that wanted that like was going to stop me. So once I flew over there, and then Derby really liked me, I liked Derby, and they ended up offering me a 3-year contract when I was only 15. So I knew once I finished my exams in school, that was all that I really wanted. That the exams were finished, and that was me. I was just thinking, right, get me on a plane. And I know 15 was young, but yeah, I'm sure if my mum had her way, she didn't want me to fly away at all. She wanted to keep me. I was the baby of the group. But
so that's what I want to ask you, Mark, real quick, just for the audience perspective. We're at 15 years old. We just flew to Derby. Where's mom and dad? What's that home life looking like for you right now?
They're still at home in Ireland. So once I fly away, like they're literally still at home in Ireland. Like I flew away by myself. So when I flew away to Derby, you get put in like a house where there's a family already looking after the house, and you just basically move in with a new family. There's like 3 or 4 other players there, and then the family just look after you because we're the ones that left home. So you fly over there for the week, and you kind of meet the family, you meet where you're going to be staying, you stay where you're going to be staying, and you just see everything for what it will be if you want to sign here. And again, like I say, it was like a home from home, so I didn't have any doubts about anything. So all my family, everybody was all back in Ireland. It was just me who flew away for myself. And again, it was something that at the beginning it was difficult. I think it was something where because I was going away for football, it was something that I never really cared. But it was the time after football. Like, so you train in the morning, you train in the afternoon, but then you'd get home for your evening times. And I can't just call around to my friend's house. I can't just sit with my family. I can't just talk to family. Everything's on a phone call. So it did get quite difficult in the evening times. But the bigger picture for me was I'm playing football every single day. So literally give me a football, and I didn't care. So I think once I moved away at 15, everything kind of accelerated from there. And I ended up training every single day. I started to play games. And then by the time I got to Christmas time, I started to like play for the older ages, which was the reserve team. I started to play for them. And I was still 15. I just turned 16 at the time. And then I started playing for the reserve team. And then from the reserve team, I got to the end of the season for Derby Seniors men's team. And I got told by the manager I'd done really well, and he wanted me to travel with the senior team, and I was only 16 years old. And I said, yeah, this is amazing. And I ended up playing for the last game of the season. I ended up playing about 32 minutes. I think I played for the senior team on the last day of the season. And I went from a local park a year ago to then I played in front of 22,000 people at the age of 16. And that moment in itself was just, it all fell into place to say, this is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly all that I've ever wanted. And like, I couldn't speak more highly of the feeling. Like, I remember my family were there. I remember like after the game, like the club captain would come over and he's pointing out my family in the stands, and I'm waving to my family, and I'm just like living me dream. Like that was literally it. Like that's all that was going on in my head. That like I'm just literally living my dream, and nothing will ever top this. And I ended up, the season finishes, unfortunately, because I just wanted it to keep going and keep going. But I got to go home to my family for about 6 weeks in the summer, and I got to spend 6 weeks at home seeing everybody again and catching up with friends and being with my family. And it kind of all just made sense, where it was like, right, this is my life now. Like I can't wait to go back. I can't wait to go back. And it was always that type feeling. But unfortunately, when I ended up going back in the summer, I think it was 2009, I went back in the summer, and what you do is, for that next level, you go in for your cardiac screening, you go in for like your medicals and different things. And just after making my debut, the kind of world was at my feet a little bit. Everybody was expecting big things from this young 16-year-old who's moved away from Ireland. Like everybody was expecting a lot. And to be honest, like I was, let's say, naive as a 16-year-old. Like there was no pressure. Once I was playing football, I was happy. I always used to say, and I still say now, football was like an alter ego for me. I was very quiet as a 16-year-old, and I was very quiet and wouldn't really speak to people. But once I was on the football pitch, I'd be talking to him, I'll talk to him, I'll tell him what to do. I'd be telling everybody what to do. And once you come off that pitch, I was back quiet again. So people, like, I used to always use football as my way of speaking. And I had the routine heart scan, which every player gets. And I remember I was sitting in the physio room, and while I'm sitting there, the physio walked in, the doctor walked in, and they shut the door behind them. So I was sitting there thinking, like, I don't know, like what are you gonna tell me? And I remember I ended up sitting on the bed, and the physio and the doctor came up to me and said, "Look, Mark, we found a slight abnormality in your valve." And to me, I didn't really know what it was. They said, "Look, you have a minor leak in your aortic valve," which they said people can live with this in their life, and then later in life it ends up affecting them. But for yourself, they said, because you're in professional football, they said if you don't feel any of the side effects, like your dizziness, lightheadedness, fatigue, all of these different things. They said it's something that, okay, you can play with it, but we'll just monitor you. We'll just keep a close eye. And me at 16, I was just thinking, well, do you know what? Once I can still play, that's all that mattered. Like, I didn't even take on board what they were really saying. I didn't see it as really a significant thing. So then as training is going on, we wear heart rate monitors, and one training session, my heart rate maxed out at, I think it was 226. And the average was 203. So they kind of put two and two together and thought, are these the two things to one, my heart rate is higher, am I just working really hard? So they sent it off to a specialist. And in that specialist, they spoke to me and they basically said, "Look, Mark, we're going to have to send you for an MRI just to see how the valve is functioning, to see how your heart is functioning in a live kind of feed. So we can only know after that. But just by looking at this, you won't need an operation for another 40, 50 years. So even in my mind, 40, 50 years, football is finished. Like, my career would be finished and everything is done with." So I never really panicked too much. And then I had an MRI scan. And then afterwards, we stood with the doctor and he said, "Look," he said, "on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not so bad and 10 being at its worst, they said that your valve is leaking about a 7 or an 8. So then all of a sudden, the physio kind of, a light bulb went a little bit to think this is actually a little bit more serious than we thought. So those results got sent to another specialist. So then when they got sent to another specialist, I ended up seeing this specialist, who then went, and as he sat there and spoke with us, he basically said, he said, "Look, Mark," he said, "your valve is leaking." And he said, "It's progressing that little bit more. But while it's progressing that little bit more," he said, "it looks like you won't need an operation for another 20, 30 years. So again, 16, I would just listen to the adults, and the adults will tell me what I need to do, and I just go do it. So when they say 20, 30 years, again, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, football will be long gone. I'll be in my 40s and football will be finished. So they sent it on to another specialist, who then sat with us again and said, "Look, I've looked at all of your data that you've got. We're going to have to refer you to a surgeon just to see what his professional opinion would be." So in this time, I found home to my family, and my family had to fly over. So I remember, like, walking into the office, and we're in this hospital, and I walked into the office, and there was me, my mum, my dad, and the Derby County physio at the time. We're all just sitting in the office waiting on the surgeon. So then the surgeon walked in, and he walked over to his desk. He put his diary down, and he just picked up the model heart, and he said, "Look, Mark," he said, "your heart is 3 times the size of what it should be for someone of your age. And if you don't get this operation done now," he said, "you're going to die." So it was like one of those moments that it was like an out of body type experience, where it was like, you can't be speaking to me. I just played in front of 22,000 people the season before. There's no chance. Like, I don't feel all the things you're telling me I should be feeling, like this can't be me. So he basically said to me, he was like, look, he said, your heart, he said, is putting up with the strain of the leak in your aortic valve. He said, and your heart is just swelling and swelling. And he said, it's grown. And he said, it's going to get to a point where he said, one morning, he said, you'll wake up. He said, you could walk up a flight of stairs or you brush your teeth. And he said, your heart will just stop. And he said, in this year, he said, your heart is getting to that stage where he said that could potentially happen. So we sat down and he basically said, look, Mark, he said, professional sport probably won't happen for you anymore. He said, to have a level of fitness for professional sport, he said, you have to be at your max all the time. And he said, your heart will not put up with that strain. So he also said to me, when he did say all them things, I actually asked him and I said, look, can I still play football? Like, there was no question of open heart surgery and I need this. I just asked, could I still play football? And he said to me, to play football, he said, you'd be lucky to play down the park with your friends. He said, probably your professional career is finished. And I think that, like, hearing those words is what hurt me more than it did the fact of hearing that I needed open heart surgery, because football was my life. It was everything. I was living my dream. I had a small taste of it the season before to understand what I was doing, and I just thought, this can't be happening. So he sat with me and we went through the different procedures that can happen for the open heart surgery, where they told me I could have a metallic valve, which meant I could never play football again because I would have been on blood thinners for the rest of my life. They told me I could have a pigskin valve put in, which they said still isn't a guarantee because the pigskin would have to adapt to your body, and if your body rejects it, it may not work. Or else they said there was another procedure they could do where they take your aortic valve and they maneuver it and swap it around with the lung valve, so it's still all the same tissues, all your own tissues, but then later down the line you need an operation for the lung valve. So there was all these different procedures, and I only asked the question of which is going to be the best one I can use to try and play football. And he said, look, we can put a pigskin valve in. He said it'll probably last you a year to a maximum of 5 years playing at that intensity, but I'm not going to say that you'll probably ever play again. And I said, okay. And he said, I have an example of a young gymnast. She came in here, he said, and she was doing really well in gymnastics. She had the operation. We're in 16 months. The valve started leaking again. She had to have the operation again. And then our gymnastics was finished. So I got put on basically a time scale of 1 to 5 years. But once he told me there was that like small glimmer of hope to be able to do it, I said, yeah. I like, there was no question. Like, I just answered it out straight there and then. Like, didn't speak with my parents, didn't speak to anybody. I just said, yeah, that's the one that I want, because it was the only option that was giving me this slight chance of playing again. So what was before we went into the meeting was, you won't need an operation for 20, 30 years. He took out his diary and he looked at it and he said, okay, Mark, he said, we can do the operation in 2 weeks' time. And then that's when, like, my whole body just kind of went into shock to think, oh, this is happening. Like, this is happening now. Like, and there was kind of no getting around the fact that it was like inevitable. This is needing to happen and it needs to happen soon. So I remember the Derby County sent me home to my family in Dublin for 2 weeks to be around me family and friends. And then after those 2 weeks, I ended up having the operation. And it was 6 hours long. So once I ended up coming out of the operating theatre, all my family were there. You get up and you start walking and you start building things up, and it's like you just get back into the swing of like small movements. So like you're like a child starting to walk again. I can get up and walk for 2 seconds and I'd have to sit down. I'd get up and walk for 5 seconds the next day and have to sit down. And it was just so slow and tedious, but I had to do it. So then I got to go home to Dublin once they discharged me from the hospital. I went home for 3 months. And then once I got back into January, it was like, okay, it was quite kind of surreal, because Derby, even with all the experts that are in football, they were even kind of scratching their heads thinking, how do you rehab a heart? So like, I've got a physiotherapist, I've got a fitness coach basically saying, Well, they know how to rehab a hamstring, a calf muscle, but how do you rehab a heart? Because now you have to get back to a certain standard. So they done what they are, like the fitness coach at the time done the best that he could do. Like he knew how to get people fit. So he just went back to basics with me and said, okay, we're going to jog for a couple of minutes and then we're going to walk. We're going to jog, we're going to walk. And I'd done that for so long. And I just couldn't think or feel like I was getting any fitter. So I started to like kind of get disheartened with it, thinking, I think the doctor was right. But because everybody around me was so positive that I was always going to play again, it never gave me time to think I'm never going to do it. There was always somebody there just kind of been like, no, look, we'll go for it again. We'll go again. And once I ended up going back to the hospital for, I think it was a 6-month checkup, I had to walk on a treadmill. And as I'm walking on this treadmill and I'm doing it like so easily, the hospital got surprised. They said, Mark, you're doing unbelievably well. Like you're really fit. And that was the thing that gave me a little bit of a boost to think, actually, I am getting fitter. Like things are going really well. So what I thought, because I'm watching all the football lads training every single day and I'm thinking I'm nowhere near that fitness. But once I knew my fitness was getting better, I knew, right, I'm on the right track. And then for another couple of months, done the same things. And then I had the operation in October. And then it was around March time, I started to go back into training. And then by the end of March, going into April, I started to play my first game. And by May, I got back into the first team and I got back onto the first team bench. So even though it was a season of no football, it was probably the most significant season in football that I've ever had, because it was like the starting point for other things that have happened in my career that I'll always look back, and I always put myself back to the point of saying, if I can get back from this, I can get back from that. And once I had a football shirt back on, and once I was in a professional environment and I didn't care where it was, I was just happy. And it gave me a new appreciation for football. It gave me a new love for football. It gave me so much more than looking at it on a drastic scale to say, I just had open heart surgery at 16. It gave me so much more different tools that for a football career was definitely needed.
Dude, that's sorry. So you're go a step further. You're back on the bench. Do you get to play?
Do you know what? I actually never got a chance to play, but I think it was more of a good gesture from the club to say, I've worked so hard to get back. Now you've done really well. Now you're on the first team bench. And now it's that kind of bit of a feeling of, I've done it. I've made it. I've actually done what I set out to do. I've got myself back playing again. I've got myself back training again. I've got myself back into the mark that I was last year. Like the football, like everything is back again. So I didn't even think twice. I never even played on like I had open heart surgery, because it was almost like, right, that's behind me now move on. It was like that kind of mentality. And in all fairness, again, I've said it at the start, like it set me up for a lot, because even the next season after that, I was kind of in and out of the team and I was back playing again. The following season after that, I was playing every single minute. And then I ended up having a cruciate ligament injury in my knee. And that cruciate ligament injury was something that, again, sometimes in football or in sport, it can be a career-ending injury. And there was never a doubt in my mind I was ever going to get back from it. Like, I was always coming back from it, because I always based it down to the fact of going, okay, if I can get back from open heart surgery, I can get back from this. And I think the only reason why the cruciate ligament injury probably sat with me a little bit more was because I knew my football career was on a time scale. From the time I had the open heart surgery, I got told a year to a maximum of 5 years. So anything in between that, I'm just hoping for the best case scenario of 5 amazing years and let's see what happens. But because I picked up that injury and because I picked up that along the way, it probably affected me a lot more mentally, because I'm thinking, I need to get back. I need to get back, because this could be my last season. And I had a heart scan every single season for all my time in football to see if I was allowed to play next year. So even if I signed a 3-year contract, I might only get 1 year out of that. But I never really thought of it like that. I would literally just go year to year And that's why I say, looking back, the open heart surgery gave me that appreciation for football to look at it and think, well, I'm going to enjoy every last year like it is going to be my last, because potentially it could be. So it made me give everything to the sport, and it made me not get too low with the lows and not too high with the. I'm just really enjoying myself, and I'm loving it. Like, and don't get me wrong, I've had disappointments along the way, and I've had different things, but it gave me that different view of football to think I'm going to play like this is my last year. And I know it sounds cliche, but in the circumstance I was in, that's literally everything that it was, because this could be my last season. So let's make it the best one I can possibly have. And then I'd go and have a heart scan, get told everything's okay. And then I go, right, this next season, let's make this the best season that I could possibly have. And then it just kept happening and happening. And again, as time was going on, and like I say, I picked up injuries along the way, but always went back to, if I can get back from this, I can do this. And if I can do this, I can do that. And all the things that kind of set me back were just building up a resistance for me to say, look, I've come through a lot. This won't defeat me, or this won't beat me. And then I played at certain clubs later down the line where the manager didn't like me. And that was like a whole different dynamic, because there was no injury stopping me. There was no heart surgery stopping me. It was a manager stopping me. And it was a manager's opinion. And then that gave me a whole new insight into football, to think somebody's opinion can hinder your career, and somebody's opinion can do this. And if a manager doesn't like you, I can play so well. And because I play really, really well, this manager still won't play me. So you kind of scratch your head thinking, what more can I possibly do? But even in that time, I still look back at all the things that I went through and thought to myself, I didn't go through all of this for no reason. Like, there was not any doubt in my mind that I went through this to get there, and I went through this injury to get here. And all of these different past experiences have put me in this position to say, this manager isn't going to beat me. I've seen it as a task to kind of say, you're not going to dampen me spirits. And I had bad times during that. I had times where I doubted it. I just wanted to leave and go home to Ireland. This wasn't what football was supposed to be. Like, this can't be this bad. And all of these different things that went on in my mind. But at the same sense, I looked at it where I thought, no, you're not going to beat me. And I challenged it to an extent of going, okay, I'm going to come in every single day with a smile on my face. I'm going to come in and shake your hand every day. I'm going to come in and train really hard, because I start to understand it's in my control. I can let myself go, because when that next opportunity does come, it's up to me then to be in the best shape that I can possible to then take that next opportunity, which will get me away from this situation that I'm in right now. So I started to learn all of that, and I just never gave up as I went along. And each day that passed and each week that passed, I was lucky enough that I had like the right people around me and coaches that were helping me along and were keeping my fitness up. Even if the manager didn't want to play me, I still had the opportunity of staying fit. So I knew everything was in my hands to do.
You froze, buddy. I think you're getting close to coming back. There you are. Sorry, man, I lost you for a second.
Yeah, I think it just cut out.
Hey, no, it was good. Dude, I had teed up because I was waiting for a minute to ask you. Because this is everything you're saying right now. Where you've had your open heart surgery and you're a 15-year-old kid, where does all this positivity come from? Like, you've lived an entire, and I'm going to anchor here. I'm not talking the last 15 years. I'm talking 0 to 15, 16 years old. You just sound like you're this beacon of positivity and just trying to get win every minute, every hour to get as much as you can out of life. Where does that come from?
I think it comes. I do think it comes from my family and the upbringing I had, because like everything that I had in my life, like I never went without anything, but like I was never like given everything and spoiled as a child. Like I just literally I had great friends, like all my friends that I've grown up with from 0 to 15. I still have them from 15 now to 31. Like I still have all the same friends from growing up. So it was always like I just had the right people around me. Like I had the right family, and I look at that now and say, like, I am quite lucky to have all of that. And even when I was in school, I enjoyed helping people. When I was in like classrooms, I enjoyed doing well in school. Like everything to me, like I always did have those enjoyments. I was always, as a kid, I was growing up, I was the one that would play little tricks on people and joke around and always try and have a smile and be laughing. That was the person that I was. And I think like that does come from my family and my parents. Like
you've got mom and dad, and tell me about you said you mentioned earlier you're the youngest. You got mom and dad, and how's your siblings flow?
Yeah, it's me mom, dad, and it's me. I have one brother. He's 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
And
what's your dad doing for work? What was his career?
So my dad is he works in telecommunications, which he works and helps installing phones and different things. So again, like he goes out to work every day, comes home, food ready on the table type thing. Like he was the one. He was like
what's mom's job? Is she stay at home, or what's that look like for you guys?
Yeah, she stays home now. But when I was growing up, she worked in a hotel in Ireland. She worked as a manager of like the cleaning side of all the rooms and different things. So like like as I said, everything was just like normal. Like it was like if there was like functions going on, like we'd get brought to like the hotel functions, and again I'm running around and I'm throwing things around and just having fun. Like, and again, it always goes back to the point of saying like the upbringing was literally what it says. It's literally just that it was a happy family, it was a good family, it was a strong family, that we were allowed to be the kids we wanted to be. And again, we were never spoiled for anything, but it's just we never went without. And I think my mum is somebody who, like my mum's side of the family had the type of family that loved jokes, loved having a laugh, loved singing along, like all of these different things. And dad's side of the family, he was more of the disciplined one. So it was always, you had that perfect balance of, I could always twist my mum's arm if I wanted to get away with something. Yeah. But if she said, wait until dad comes home, then all of a sudden I wouldn't do a single thing. So it was literally that. So we were always
kind of all positive. Like this is a positive dynamic that you're in. You're around positive influences, people. Like I'm serious, man. You're like a beacon of positivity throughout all of this so far. And sometimes I think it's a kid spirit, right? It's because we haven't had a lot of time to know that there's negative things in the world. So, you haven't failed a lot at 15. You're on your path. Your grades good, teachers good, all that.
Yeah, like when I was in school, like I actually enjoyed doing well in school. Like, and I was the type of person that I was always competitive. Like even growing up, I was always competitive. But I was always someone that when something mattered to me, like again, if I done well in school and different things, like I could do a spelling test or I can do a test, and I could get one wrong out of 20 questions. But I'd always go, why did I get that one wrong? I'd never focus on the 19 I got right, because I was always really hard on myself as a kid, just as much as anything else, because I always wanted to do really well. So again, like you say, I was surrounded by positivity, but on the other side of that, like I had a brother who I could look up to, that when he went and played football, I'd go play with him. And don't get me wrong, we would fight a lot, as brothers do, growing up, and you'd always have your own disagreements, but we always have things that we look back on, and always have things that I look at now and say, do you remember when we went on this trip with football? Or do you remember when we went and done this? Or when we used to play out on the street? Like my family still live on the same street now to where I grew up. So when I go home, it's like going back in time, because nothing's different. And I actually really love it, because I'm going back to what my life does be away from Ireland is, yes, I can stay busy and football and it's very professional, but I go home to Ireland and I'm literally just like I'm Mark again. Like I can just relax and I come away from everything and it's home. So it's always been something to me that having that home in Ireland has always been like the pivotal thing, that no matter what goes on in my life, I could take a trip home and I can just breathe again and feel as though, right, I can relax, because it's just exactly how I left it type thing. And I love it.
Dude, that's That's really cool. That's what you got my, like, because you're in an age where I had some friends that do hockey families will do what you guys do for football. Hockey families will do that here. Hockey's a real big on host families and traveling and things like that. So I've been around some kids that did that, but like nothing to your scale. So, all right, so I want to know before we move on, because I want to know that's we're at surgery and then your career. What's mom and dad? What are they thinking from like, okay, my son's going to go play ball in another country and I'm not going to see him every day, and what, tell me that part. I think I want to hear that, and then I really want to hear what their thoughts was around heart surgery. I got another question before you get there. So
Yeah, I think like they were always very supportive of anything, and my dad, even still to this day, has always said if it's what I wanted to do, they would help me and back me the whole way. And they were never going to be the type of parents that would push me into a football career because that's what they wanted me to do. Or they were always someone where, right, Mark enjoys football, well, let him go play. And if Mark doesn't want to play anymore, he doesn't have to. But because it's what I wanted, it was always to the point of, yeah, look, we'll allow it. Like, just if that's what you want to do, go play. And it was always we were always allowed to make our own choices. Like, don't get me wrong, they were never going to allow us go down the wrong path if they thought it was wrong. But they were always the type of parents that even if my mum had questions about it, because again, leaving home at the age of 15, I think my mum would be somebody who realistically would struggle a little bit. And I think she did say that if we never played football before, she always used to say, if I had known what I know now, I'd probably never let you play again. And it was that type thing of, she always said it to me, where football to her was, I never wanted me baby to leave, that type thing. She never wanted our kids to leave. Because my brother, when he was 16, he moved away to England as well. He had a chance to play professional football too. So both of us left. When my brother left at the age of 16, me a year later left at the age of 15. So they had no kids in the house by the age of 15 and 16. So like, it was something where they just allowed us to make those choices, and they allowed us to fully embrace anything we wanted to do. And if it's what we wanted to do, great, we'll back it. But again, like, moving on to the open heart surgery, I was lucky that I had their support, because it was more, what helped the recovery was nobody around me from Derby County as a club and as staff members and from my family, nobody put a single bit of doubt in my mind that I'd never play again. Like, and that is something that stood out to me so much, because my family were all saying, Mark, when you're back, but you know, when you're back playing, you'll look back at this, and when you're playing again, you're going to be great. And I remember it was like, obviously years later, the game that I first returned in was on TV, like, for an academy team. So my dad got to watch it back home in Ireland. And my mum told me that my dad remembers he switched the TV, like he switched the TV on, and as he's watching it, my mum said the first time the ball hit me or I blocked it, and me being a defender, I used to put my head anywhere and I'd like be kind of hard on my sleeve type player, that once I jumped in for my first tackle and my first block and my first header, my mum said my dad just sat back and goes, there he is, he's grand, he's fine. So my dad knew I was okay. Like, I think they were worried for me, but they never allowed, they never showed me that they were worried. They were always kind of positive towards it, but they were secretly worried, thinking, what happens if he never plays again? What happens if he's too scared? What happens if something goes wrong? And I think even through my career, I think afterwards, they've actually taken a sigh of relief since I've had to, like, since I retired 4 years ago. They actually took a sigh of relief, because my mum used to say every single week I'd go out and play football, even though she knew it was something I loved doing. She said quietly she would sit there and think, like, and she used to say, I used to say a prayer every Saturday, because I didn't want anything to go wrong. I just wanted to be okay. And once I came out of the game and I'd done really well, or I scored a goal, or anything might have happened, then she'd go, right. And it was always done away from me. Like, I didn't see any of this. So like, because I never seen any of it, it didn't play on my mind about anything, and I was able to just focus and think, yeah, I'm fine, everything's great, and I can carry on with that type feeling. Whereas they were doing all the worrying for me.
Do you have kids of your own now?
No, I don't have kids of my own now.
Some perspective on that is I'm the same way. When my kids, they play ball, like they're athletic, but just as a dad, once I lay eyes on them, I'm good. Like if I go into a game or whatever and I'm not there, once I find my kid, I'm good. So I can imagine your dad like waiting to see you and saying, all right, there he is, you're good. And then he saw your efforts. Here's what I was going to ask you, because I'm curious. What did it mean to your mom and dad for you to play when they were in the stands, 22,000 other people, and your players and you're on that field? What did it mean to your mom and dad?
It literally meant the world to them. I think it was something where my mom told me that they both ended up crying. Like they actually both ended up crying, because they knew how much I loved football. They knew that football was everything to me. And when they seen me in a stadium full of 22,000 people, and my dad used to get nervous watching me play football when I was home in Ireland in a local park. My dad could not even sometimes watch them games because he'd get so nervous for us. Yeah. But my mum said he actually sat there and he watched the 30 minutes that I played. And my mum said like she obviously looked over and both of them were just crying, because that to them was, there's our son living our dream, or living his dream type thing. Yeah. And to be honest, like all I wanted even from my career was to make them proud. Like that was all that I wanted, like to kind of go, you have let me go away. You have like raised me so well. You have done these things. And I just wanted to make them proud, to kind of go, this is where all your efforts have gone. I'm doing what I love. And this is like, you have allowed this type thing. Like there was loads of emotion that day. And as I said, throughout my whole career, when they've flown over to watch me play, or when games have been on TV and stuff like that,
froze again, buddy. All right, you coming back. Hang on. Here you are. Should be back.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah.
You're back. You've been twice. Check you out. Look at you. Look so serious. Dude, as a parent, everything, and people will tell you this, and it's 100% true, because you got a couple people, like I have two kids, and they have to become first. And just when they go out and they get to play the game that they love, I just enjoy being there, watching them compete. And I love watching them do what they enjoy. And that means a lot to me. And they're not playing for me. And I tell them, you guys go play for yourself first, fun second. And if you'll go play for yourself and have fun, it makes me happy. Yeah. And when you guys, if you win, lose, or whatever, but as long as you're playing for yourself and for fun, I'm a happy parent. But if you're not, and you're putting way more into this than it should be, then I'm not interested in being a part of it. So when I coach kids, that's what I kind of use that same thing. If this was miserable, and the thing I've heard from you this entire time too is how much freaking fun you've had. You haven't said you had one bad coach that you felt like, that little conflict there, but outside of that, you've had a freaking blast doing what you love.
Yeah, 100%, and that is literally it. And it was growing up in Ireland, moving away, like everything, I couldn't have wanted it or dreamed that any better. Like, yes, I've had ups and downs along the way, but I think when I look back at it as a whole, I've got to do something that not a lot of people get to do. I got to live a career, have a life, move away from home at a young age. I grew up really quickly. I got to mature really quickly. I got to enjoy my child. Like, there was so many things that the good outweighed the bad. And through the bad times, I was lucky enough to have the right people around me. But I think leading on to the fact of then with the career that I had and the memories that I've made playing in certain big games and getting to do so many great things. When I had to retire at the age of 27, I think that's when things took that little bit of a turn to where now I'm starting to experience the other side of life, the negative side of life, the side that, why am I feeling like this, or why is this happening, and this shouldn't be this way, and this shouldn't have happened this way. Because I think at 27, I remember it was just during COVID, and COVID stopped football for a certain amount of weeks because nobody knew what it was. And we got given fitness programs to stay fit and to do whatever we needed to do to kind of keep ourselves going until we find out what's happening. And I remember I'm cycling and jogging each day and different things. And still, the sun was shining, so I was getting out on a bike and I was just trying to keep fit. And in that time of keeping fit, I remember there was one evening I was sitting with my ex-partner at the time. And as we were sitting there, I remember I just got this terrible thump in my chest where it was something I never felt before. And I could feel my neck was starting to pulse. Like my body was starting to feel like all clammy. And I really thought, something's not right here. I think I'm having a heart attack. So I ended up texting our club doctor at the time, and I spoke with him, and he told me, look, it's probably nothing to worry about. Let me know, keep me up to date on what's happening at the moment, but it's probably nothing to worry about. So I didn't really think too much of it. I'm still going out cycling every single day, and I carry on doing what I'm doing. But at this time, now all of a sudden I'm starting to feel all the effects of what a leaking valve can be. I started to wake up more tired. I started to feel a little bit lightheaded. I started to get palpitations in my chest. I started to feel so much more fatigue throughout my day. And I started to have dizzy spells and different things. And I still couldn't understand what it was, because when I was 16, I never experienced any of these symptoms. So I didn't really know what it was. So I spoke with the club doctor again. I told him about all the symptoms I was having. And he said, look, because it's COVID, it was obviously difficult to get into any hospital to try and get scans. But he said, leave it with him and he's going to try and sort something for me. So he ended up sorting me a heart scan out in Cardiff in South Wales. And in that time, I went down to the hospital. I sat in the waiting room again. Nobody's allowed in the hospital. I went in, had my heart screening. And I remember I sat in the office and it was just me this time. Like, obviously, family's still in Ireland. No physios are allowed in. It's just me in the office with the doctor. And he came in and said, look, Mark, he said, your valve is leaking again. He said, it's leaking very badly. And he said, something's going to have to happen. And the minute he said that, because at 16, I made a promise to myself, and I told everybody this, that whether football was going to be a year or a maximum of 5 years, or no matter how long it might be in between that, whether I got a year or 2 years out of it, I was only having one operation for my football career, and I was having one operation for the rest of my life. I said, I'm not going to go through this 4, 5, 6 times chasing a football career, that I need to look out for these things. And I made that choice when I was 16, and I never really got a chance to face it only until I was 27. But even at 27, there was never anything going to change my mind. I didn't care where my career was. And realistically, I got 11 years out of a valve that I got told I should only get 5 from, or maybe 1 year. So everything already was still on the plus side to go, well, I got 11 years, a lot longer than any doctor gave me at the beginning. I got told I'd probably never play football again. But even in this time, I sat in the office and I remember I just put my head down and I just burst into tears. And the doctor said to me, he said, look, he said, your career doesn't have to finish now. He said, there's procedures we can do. And I said, you don't understand. I said, I had this procedure when I was 16. I said, and now I know I need to retire because the surgery that I'm looking for, or the surgery that I'm going to be having, will not let me play again. I said, I'm going to have a metallic valve. He said, oh, okay. He said, I'm sorry to hear that. And I just started bursting into tears again and again, because it was the first time I was like, my life feels as though it's finished now. Like, everything feels as though it's finished, because I can't play football anymore. Like, the only sport that I've ever known from 10 years of age, 15 years of age to 27, it's all I've ever known. And now all of a sudden, I have just made the decision of I don't get to do this anymore. And I made that decision, but also on the flip side, it was a decision that was out of my control all at the same time. Like it was a really strange position to be in. And I left the hospital. I went back out to the car to my ex-partner at the time. And again, I just burst into tears. I said, like, I need open heart surgery again. And I cried and I cried. And then I got straight on the phone to my mum. My mum said, Mark, what's wrong? I said, look, I need open heart surgery again. She said, I'll see you tomorrow. She went, put the phone down, booked the flight, and she was straight over to me. So again, it always goes back to like my mom is someone who was like my best friend. Like if I needed her tomorrow, she would be here tomorrow. If I needed my dad tomorrow, they'd be here tomorrow. And it was something where she flew out, and in the period of when they found the diagnosis to then when I had the operation, there was so many struggles along the way, because I had to then phone up my club manager and tell him, look, I can't play football anymore. I need to retire. He ended up crying. I ended up having to release to people who followed my career and say, look, I have to retire from professional football due to the open heart surgery. Getting all messages in. It felt nice to think, do you know what? People are actually writing lovely messages to me saying, like, look, what a career. And it made me appreciate my career, because in my mind, again, the person that I have been, always hard on myself, thinking I haven't done enough in my football career. I wish I'd done more. I wish I didn't play in the Premier League, which I wish I did. But when I look back at the career I actually had and see the amount of messages that I got, it actually like made me feel like a bit more warm inside to think, actually, I did okay for myself. Like everything was okay. But again, it was the best of a bad situation. There was always a storm above me head, because now all of a sudden I've had to release I'm not playing football anymore. But now I still have to face open heart surgery again. Now I have to go through all of them same emotions again. And there was an evening here with my mum here, and I went in for another scan. And once I came home that evening, I was sitting on the sofa directly behind me, and I had to sit and open up the doors. I could feel myself just clamming up and getting really, really hot and lightheaded. And I remember I had to just grab onto my mum's hand, and my mum was holding my hand, and I said, Mum, like, I can't breathe. So I thought I'm having a heart attack. And when I thought I was having a heart attack, like, it was the first time I've ever been scared, thinking I could possibly die here. And I had my mum holding my hands, and her head is down, and she's just telling me to breathe, and she's saying a prayer under her breath, and we're sitting there together. And we called an ambulance, and then the ambulance came. I went and got put into hospital, and all the ambulance told me was it was a panic attack.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that I've ever experienced anything like that, because through football, again, like you say, all happy times and up and down times and distractions and all these different things. The first time now I've faced a panic attack, and I'm thinking, like, it can't be. Like, this can't be a panic attack. Like, you didn't just feel what I felt. That can't be a panic attack. This has to be my valve. This has to be something wrong. This has to be the valve. Because there was no reasoning for it, I couldn't understand it. Like, I'm always somebody that would have to ask a reason why, find out the reason why did that happen, and this happened because of this. Whereas this time I had no reason or no understanding of it, and I was thinking, nah, it just can't be. My mind has made me think this. And then as time went on, I got admitted into hospital as my condition was getting worse. I was getting more fatigued. I was losing weight. Things just weren't adding up. So they admitted me into hospital, and I spent 2 weeks prior to the operation in hospital waiting on an operation date. And then the week that they told me I had the operation, my operation was on the 2nd of July. And it was a day before that, like 2 days before that, I ended up sitting in the ward. And that evening, again, I started like just dripping in sweat, feeling nauseous, everything. I just start feeling really sick. So I buzzed in, the nurse come running in. I said, I'm going to be sick. So I'm getting sick into a bowl by the side of my bed, and they're taking me temperature, which my temperature was through the roof. So they thought there could be potential COVID that I've just like ended up getting. And then all of a sudden they do an ECG. I had an echo scan. They start doing bloods. And then they came back the next morning and said, Mark, look, you could have a potential infection in your valve, which if you do have an infection in your valve, it means we can't operate on you tomorrow, which means then all of a sudden we need to be careful because your valve isn't in the best shape already. So this is very, very serious. So I remember like I was feeling really rough and I was feeling awful. And on the next day, they had to wheel me onto the main ward and hook me up to all the main machines. And like the main ward is basically for the people who are recovering from open heart surgery, not the people who are waiting to go in. So I'm sitting on the main ward watching all these people with scars on their chest and waiting to go in for the operation, or waiting to recover from the operation and do really well. And I'm laying there, and I remember the doctor came around that evening and he sat with me and he said, Mark, look, he said, your valve, he said, is hanging on by a thread. And he said, if you don't have this operation done very soon, he said, if that valve breaks off and circulates your body, he said, and it could get lodged in your brain, he said, you're dead. And the minute he said that to me, it was like the perspective change happened, that I always look back at that point and said, that's when my perspectives all changed, because what I was fearing of having open heart surgery, I actually sat there and thought, I can't wait to have it. Like, you need to give me open heart surgery. You need to save me. But he said also, he said, we have you on this ward to keep a close eye on you because we had a patient in not so long ago with a similar condition and he passed away. So we need to keep a close eye on you. So again, I didn't really sleep much that night, as you can imagine. And I think I ended up sleeping for about 20 minutes. But then the next morning, the doctor came in. And when the doctor came in that next morning, he said, Mark, look, we had your results back. You don't have an infection. We can do the operation. So in that time, when he said he could do the operation, it was like a weight came off my shoulders. Like it was like a pure weight came off my shoulders. And I sat there and thought, thank God for this. Like I just burst into tears. I held his hand. I shook his hand. And that feeling of, and I never thought I'd ever kind of be happy or celebrate the fact, but once he told me I could have open heart surgery, it made me happy. It made me like relieved. And that to an extent, then I ended up having the operation. So I had the operation, which then took 7 hours this time. And once I got wheeled out, I was in intensive care. But in all this time, there was no family allowed in the hospital because of COVID. There was no partner allowed in the hospital because of COVID. It was, I had to listen to every last doctor tell me what was wrong, what was right, what could go wrong. So there was nothing sheltering me from anything that was being said. And I think that was the hard part, that I understood every single thing. And I wasn't a 16-year-old who didn't understand anything. I understood everything, and I understood it too well to where I'm thinking, I wish I didn't know this. I wish somebody would tell them to stop telling me these things. I don't want to know. So after having the operation, and I remember it was the night before the operation, and I was on the phone to my mum. And she said, look, Mark, always remember, I will be there. I'm going to be there at the operation, because the last time she was allowed to sit outside the operating theatre, but this time she wasn't. But she said to me, Mark, trust me, I will find a way, I'll be there. So I said, okay, no problem. And again, me being me was, Mom, look, I'll be fine. I've been through this before. I'll be okay. And she's telling me I'll be okay. And I remember the time I'm getting wheeled down to the operating theatre, who was walking alongside me bed with my ex-partner was my mum. So like my mum ended up getting into the hospital because she wasn't taking no for an answer. And she sat outside the operating theatre, and the doctor came out. And the doctor said, look, it's all been successful. But what the doctor was telling me, man, was, I'm surprised he's still alive. Like, the state his heart was in and the way his valve was, I'm surprised he's still alive. And my mum always says, look, there's always been something about you. There's someone looking down on you. There's someone who was helping you along the way. And it's like, it just made me think all these different things. But I ended up having the operation, and then the first phone call that I got a chance to make was to my mum and my ex-partner at the time, and it was, I'm alive. Like, you can be okay now, you can breathe now, I'm alive. That's all you need to know. Everything's going to be okay. Because in my mind, it was an operation I've been through. I know how to get back. I know how to get back from the physical side. I'm okay now. I've woken up. I know I'll be better. And they would just take your time and all these different things. So within the space of a day, 2 days, I'm back up walking again. I'm walking around the ward, and you do all the same steps to what I'd done at 16. So I kind of remembered the whole routine. You had to get the certain tubes taken out of your neck, the ones out of your stomach, all these different things. And it got to a point where a week later, I had the discharge nurses come around to say, Mark, look, you've done so well. We're going to allow you out. So it was the same procedure as when I was 16. So that morning, I went on an exercise bike, and I'm thinking I'm on a bike now, and I'm videoing that, and I'm sending it to my family saying, look, I'm doing so well. Like I'm actually on an exercise bike now. I was sending it to all my friends and the people in football and everything. And it was more like of a fact of like showing people that, look, I am okay. Like everything's going to be fine. And then again, that evening, the night before I was supposed to be leaving, the sweats start happening. The nauseous feeling starts happening. Everything starts like turning completely wrong. And I ended up having an echo scan on my chest. And with that scan, they found a dark spot just above my heart. And they didn't know what it was. So they thought it was another infection. So with all this, my temperature is really high and everything's going wrong. And they have to do more bloods, more everything, because the same, Mark, if this is an infection, we might have to open you up again. And in this time, I lost 2 stone in weight. I was a shell of the person that I am today. And in that time of telling me all of this, that, Mark, look, it could be an infection. We're going to have to investigate it a lot more. But then again, I had to start getting more wires put into me and more medication put into me and more different things. And it just felt like it was never ending. And this one time I could actually feel myself getting lower and lower, where I didn't have much fight left in me. And if they had to open me up again, I was thinking, I don't think I'm going to survive it. And I was just worrying myself again more and more. And again, I know this is why technology is so great, because I could FaceTime my family and I could video call with my family and everything. But it was never the same as what it was when I was 16, when I had somebody sitting by the side of my bed, where I could have somebody to go out and walk with, where I could have somebody just to talk to. Whereas this time it was just me isolated in a ward with other recovery people sitting on a phone talking to people. And it was easy just to press a button if I didn't feel it, and not where there was none of this. Someone sit there and go, come on, Mark, we'll go for a walk. And you kind of get made do it, and it helps you and it boosts you up a little bit more. So in all those times, it was very difficult. And I remember when they said that they had to potentially open me up again, it kind of just started shattering me dreams all over again. From what it was that morning to think, Mark, you're doing so well, to was, not again. When does this nightmare end? And as time went on, I spent another 2 weeks in hospital, another 3 weeks in hospital. And the surgeon came around. And in this time, the doctors are coming in telling me what could be wrong, what might be wrong, this could be happening, that could be happening. And you can feel it all just slowly getting you down more and more. And it's like that whole thing again, I'm going, I just stop telling me these things. I don't need to know. Just tell me I'm going to be okay. Like, because in the whole time, not one single person said, Mark, you're going to be okay. It was always, this could be wrong and that could be wrong and this could be happening. And all I wanted to hear was, you're going to be okay, which when you have family sitting alongside your bed, they would reiterate that to me nonstop like they did before. And this time I never had it. So it got to the time where the surgeon came around and spoke to me. He said, look, Mark, you have some inflammation around the aortic root that we replaced. So the space that it was taken up and we made it smaller, that space is filled up with swelling now. So to get rid of that, we're going to put you on some anti-inflammatories, which then all of a sudden is going to get rid of that and you'll be fine within a week. And I said, why couldn't any of your doctors tell me that? I said, everybody's telling me worst case scenario. And he said, look, some of these are inexperienced with people of your age. You're like quite young to be having the open heart surgery. So they're talking about people who are in their 50s and 60s. Like, you're a 27-year-old man who this happens, and it is quite common in people my age. So what they said is inexperience for them. He said he's well experienced in it. So once he told me that, tears started happening again, and I started to just feel that kind of way of going, I'm going to be okay. So I had to constantly keep telling myself, I'm going to be okay. I just needed somebody to tell me that. So then time passed, the inflammation went, I started to feel a little bit better. But in all of that time, I was like, I look at it and say I was over hospitalized, because once I came out of hospital, the feeling of anxiety, the feeling of depression, the feeling of I lost my safety net of this hospital, and the click of a button for a nurse to come running to me if I didn't feel okay. Like, the whole feeling of safe just left me. I felt so unsafe like that. I'm thinking, I don't want to leave hospital, because these people have saved me life. These people can save me. Now all of a sudden, who's going to save me? Now all of a sudden, what button can I click and someone's going to come to my rescue? Like, everything felt like so scary to me. And that's when all of a sudden the mental health issues started, because I'd come back home and I didn't want to leave my bedroom. I'd lay in bed all the time. And then when I'd lay in bed all the time, I didn't want to sit in on my sofa. And then if I had a panic attack in my bedroom, I'd sleep on my sofa. And then if I had a panic attack on my sofa, I'd never sit in this room. I'd just stay in my bedroom, because everything just felt as though I was slowly confining myself into make myself as comfortable. So I won't do this and I won't do that and I won't do this. So I was literally stopping myself living, which again comes back to the whole point. I didn't have football distracting me. I didn't have a solid structure in my life. I didn't have any kind of goal at the end of it. It was always just every day was survival mode. Every day I was just surviving. Let's get through today and let's see tomorrow. Let's just get through today. And what they never even told me in the hospital, with the metallic valve that I've got in now, you can hear it clicking like a clock, and you can feel the beat every single day. And they don't tell you that before the operation. So this is a new sensation that this is all happening for me now. So when I'm feeling this every single day, when a panic is happening, I can feel every thump. When I'm relaxing, I can feel it. And when I'm in a quiet room, I can hear it. So all of them things, like, it's all new adjustments. Like, all of these new.
Look, Mark, nobody told you that was going to happen.
No, like, I didn't
I
know.
can see you freaking. I can see you freaking out now, right? Because you're like, I can hear this thing clicking. Does it need to be on, or what's going on?
Yeah, I remember I went back for my 6-month checkup, and I asked the doctor, "Does this stop?" And he said, "That is the last thing you wanted to do." I said, "Do I not hear this anymore?" Like, I said, "Is this something that stays with me for the rest of my life?" Like, I didn't, because nobody, again, like I say, nobody explained and nobody said anything. And again, it goes back to how I was growing up. I need to know what everything's going to be and how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it was always that type feeling. But again, I had to start getting I had to start understanding what my blood thinners were, what my warfarin is, what medication to take, what I can eat and what I can't eat, what exercise I can do, what I can't do. Like, I had no sense of structure to what football would give me in a professional environment. They tell you what you do, how you do it, when to eat, when to shower. And now all of a sudden I'm starting to live it. And now all of a sudden I'm having to live. And I'm thinking,
you got life. Yeah, you have everyday life. You got
exactly
what I would say is a normal life, right? That That's so. That's.
Yeah, no, it was strange. And the crazy thing is, it's with all of that, it ended up getting to a point of I was scared of living, because I thought what I was doing for myself was, if I stop me heart getting too excited, or if I stop walking around, or if I stop going out and doing things, I'm safe. But anybody who knows anything is the fact of saying, heart health, you have to do more, you have to exercise, you have to keep fit, you have to do that to keep your heart strong. But my mind is telling me, Mark, stay in bed, you're safe there. Mark, stay in your sofa, you're safe there. And before I know it, I'm walking myself into a depression that I didn't even know I had, because I just kept blaming everything on the open heart surgery. And I ended up getting in touch with a cardiac rehab, which then they give you a program to say, okay, we want you to walk 20 minutes on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday. So now all of a sudden the structure's coming back a little bit, and I'm going, okay, now I'll walk out, and I'll go out there for 20 minutes and walk and go, right, what's next? What's next? Because that's all my life has ever been through football, was tell me what to do and I'll do it. So I done all them things. But again, in the midst of all that, I'm in a relationship that is slowly drifting away, because my depression is something that is driving a wedge between the two of us, and the anxieties are driving a wedge between the two of us. So in time, obviously, that relationship ended, because it was something where everything I was going through, sometimes everybody was my enemy, because again, I'm fighting through losing my career, losing the job that I loved the most. all of a sudden having open heart surgery, so the pain in my chest, all these different things that are going on. Like, it was COVID, so everybody's locked in close together. Like, there was no life, and nothing felt like life anymore. And that obviously drove a wedge between us. And it got to a point where it got so difficult for her that we kind of had to get to that decision of, for me to try and protect her mental state, I kind of had to be the person to say, look, we can't do this anymore. We were arguing and bickering over things, and that was quite difficult, because you don't think that would ever be a factor, but it is a massive factor to something that she's not living the life that she thought she was going to live, and this isn't the life that I wanted to live. So even though it seems something that should be easy to get through, it was something that we were 9, 10, 11 months together, and you're kind of looking at it to an extent thinking, do you know what, it's quite a lot for somebody to take on. And you only ever know if you can once you're in that situation. And it was difficult. But it's on the same side when my mum comes over. My mum is kind of like the one who's the strong one, where she would allow me to fall out with her. We'd argue together. She'd make sure I'm eating, and I'd not want to do things, and she'd make sure I do them. And it just felt as though, do you know what, things in my life, just nothing felt right at the time. And I was going through really tough times, to where it was the cardiac rehab that told me, Mark, you're in a deep depression. And I said, I'm not depressed, I don't feel sad. I said, I've had open heart surgery, but I'm not sad. And they said, no, but you're not getting up and showering for yourself. You're not going out on walks. You're not staying active. You don't want to get out of bed. You're always tired. And I said, yeah, but I had just had open heart surgery. It's normal. He said, Mark, you're capable of all these things, but you're telling yourself you can't. So then all of a sudden I started to understand what depression was, which then it brings back to light so many things through my career to go, was I depressed then because I didn't want to do all these things and I was always sleeping? And I never understood depression, because you always think depression is, if you're sad and you're crying, you must be depressed. It's not the fact of saying, do something that makes you happy and everything's going to be fine. Like, it's not that simple. And I started to realize that. Then I started to understand what health anxiety was, because I almost was turning into a hypochondriac of anything I could feel with my chest, anything I could feel, lightheadedness. If my eyes went, if something started paining me, I'd start thinking, what's next? And I'd be so hypersensitive to everything that was going wrong with me that I was actually, again, stopping myself from living, because all I could focus on was, is this okay? Is that okay? This didn't beat the same way. This seems different today. And I was just so focused on everything that life was just passing me by again and again and again. And I just wasn't living. And in all of that time, I started to then understand what health anxiety was. So again, I was speaking to people. The club doctor put me in touch with a counsellor. And at that time, I didn't think I needed counselling, because, again, I didn't think I was struggling. I just thought it's open heart surgery. But no, I ended up doing counselling. And then the counsellor sat and spoke with me. And the first question the counsellor asked me was, okay, Mark, explain a little bit of what's going on and what your situation is. So I'm sitting there explaining the open heart surgery and saying my voice isn't quite what it used to be at this time, because the ventilator was in my throat and it clipped the vocal cord, all these things. And the therapist kind of stopped me and said, do you realise what you're speaking about? And I said, yeah, I'm just telling you about my operation. He said, but you're talking about it like you're just having a tooth out. She said, you're speaking about it like it's just normal. She said, like, what, like, you're not giving your own self a chance to realise the trauma you're going through and the post-traumatic stress that you're going through. You're not giving yourself a chance to realise how significant and how big this procedure is. You're just treating it like it's normal. And I said, but all I ever known, it is normal. I said, because from 16, I said, I've had open heart surgery. I said, from 17, 18, all the way to 27, all I had is heart screenings. I said, all of this is normal to me. She said, but when you start thinking it's normal, you start acting like it's normal. But when you start giving it the time of day and the actual focus to realise how big it is, you will stop being so hard on yourself. Because she said, you're being hard on yourself because what you think is normal and what you're feeling is normal, that open heart surgery is normal. Your body's telling you, Mark, this isn't normal. But your head is saying, nah, I shouldn't be like this. This shouldn't be happening. So I always then started to realise then, when the doctor used to say to me, or the therapist started saying to me, or other people used to say to me, Mark, you're very hard on yourself. And I never understood what that meant, because I thought, I'm not hard on myself. I love a joke and a laugh. Like, I'm not. But then you started to understand it that little bit more, to kind of say, okay, now once you start giving things the time of day, and it's almost coming from a team environment and a team sport, you forget how to talk about yourself, because you're not allowed to talk about yourself. Like, because if you're seen talking about yourself, it's always, well, he thinks he's better than everybody. Look at him speaking about himself. He's cocky, he's arrogant. Whereas now, all of a sudden, the minute I got asked to speak about myself, I started to cry, because I didn't know how to do it. Because I'm asking, so how did that make you feel? And how was that for you? And I was just burst into tears, and I didn't know how to deal with that. And the more I spoke about things to the therapist, and the more I started to open up, the more I began to become comfortable with everything. The more I started to understand everything. The more I started to be a little bit more vulnerable to the people around me. The more I started to do that. And that's why, like, till this day, it's like I start and believe that talking is such a massive thing. And the reason why I think it's such a massive thing, because anybody can do it. Like, because I was somebody that then, once counselling got me comfortable with speaking, then I started to speak to somebody who retired from professional football, who then could relate to me. And then it could resonate with me a little bit more, where they could tell me, look, Mark, it's only going to get harder before it gets better. You lost your sense of identity. You've lost this. I've been there. I know what it's like. So then all of a sudden, they're telling you feelings that you feel without you having to speak. So then you feel more comfortable, and you start going, there are more people like this. So then I started to speak to these two other people a lot more. And it was only in that time of speaking to people that I could relate to, was my mum used to say to me, Mark, that spark is back in your eye again. Like, I can finally see a bit of life back in you, because I'm starting to believe again. And it was all, again, the whole workout process of, what do I need for me? And it was that I started to just believe again. And that belief that started to come back in, seeing somebody else has been there, and look at, they're living their life and they're doing well. Now I can do the same. And that's how life started to build for me a bit more and a bit more. And they ended up showing me so many different things about just accepting it. Because they basically said, look, Mark, where you're at right now, your body is probably crying out to say, I want to be Mark the footballer. I want to go back and be Mark the footballer. Life was better. Life was easier. And they said, realistically, you can't do that anymore. But you're telling yourself, well, if I'm not that anymore, I'm nothing. Because what football used to give me was, I felt strong. I felt like I was a leader. I felt physically fit. I felt mentally fit. I felt as though, yeah, look, I'm feeling really good. And then they said, okay. But you have to also realise that it wasn't your sport that made you successful. It was you that made your sport successful. And once I heard them say that, it made me like sit there and go, I've never thought of it like that. Because then they said, everything that you say that you are, you brought that to your sport, to why it made you successful. Whereas that is you. You just have to find the confidence again and realise that person is still you, but you can then transform that into anything you please and anything you want. And once I start understanding and accepting all the small things of saying, okay, accept that. Do you know what? If today is a bad day, let it be a bad day, but don't be angry at myself, because I used to find myself being so angry when I was trying to return to football after the open heart surgery and to be part of the setup and the coaching staff. I used to get so angry at myself if I didn't go to the gym or if I didn't jog. And this is 4 months after open heart surgery. I'd come home and go, I went into football, but I haven't exercised. So I'd be more angry with myself that I haven't exercised, just like going back to when I was a kid saying, I got 19 questions right, but I got one wrong. Why did I get one wrong? So now all of a sudden, everything starts kind of coming together a little bit, where I start realising, do you know what, to be easy on yourself is the fact of going, look, I might have got one wrong, but I did get 19 right. Do you know what? I mightn't have exercised today, but at least I went into the training ground. At least I ended up waking up in the morning. At least I ended up having a shower today. And I started to appreciate the smaller things that got me there, where for that one thing that I didn't do, I'd done 20 things leading up to that to even get me into the training ground, which is a success. And that's why, like, even still to this day, all the things that I've gone through and all the things that I've had happen, I'm actually glad and thankful that it has, because I have this different understanding to people, or I have this different understanding to myself, and I have this more of an understanding to a lot of things that whatever happened to me has all happened for a certain reason. And I've had doctors twice now tell me that I shouldn't be here, that I should be dead. And I look at that and go, okay, well, there's a reason for it. And then all of a sudden I got told I shouldn't have a football career for a year to a maximum of 5. Well, now I've had 11. Now all of a sudden I've had 2 open heart surgeries. I've survived 2 of them. So there's all of these things that have all happened to me. And I look at it now and say, I've always enjoyed the fact of helping people. I've always enjoyed the fact of being able to give someone a difference of an opinion, give somebody that little bit of a helping hand to see them and their careers go better, to see them and life go better. And now I can actually speak and be vulnerable about things that I've gone through, because do you know what? I started to realize it's not about the situation that I'm in. It's about the feelings that I felt in this situation. And the feelings that you felt is what everybody feels. From anywhere around the world, everybody feels the same things. So what my open heart surgery has made me feel, it could be somebody's broken leg. And somebody thinks, I can't speak to him. He's had open heart surgery. I can't tell him that my broken leg has done that. And I try and say, you remove the situation and say, okay, how did it make you feel though? Because guaranteed we felt the same thing. So it's always trying to strip everything back. So when I started to focus on the small things and the little things, and I started to look at the little small things to say, for me now, when I wake up in the morning, my day can't get any better sometimes, because I go, well, at least I woke up. But then when I get out of bed and have a shower, I go, well, there's 2 things I've done. Now, when I've had breakfast, there's 3 things. So I actually start focusing a little bit more on the small things. And I start to appreciate the small things. And then if I didn't exercise, I'd go, well, do you know what? Obviously, I probably needed it today to do nothing. I'll go tomorrow. And then if I wake up tomorrow, it's all about literally, I don't look too far ahead for myself. Rightly or wrongly, it works for me that little bit better, because I don't try and think too far ahead. Because when I did that with football during COVID, to give an example, I bought 4 new pairs of football boots. And in those 4 new pairs of football boots that I bought, I never got to use them because I had to retire. So I look at them and say, what were they for? That was something that I had planned, didn't quite happen. So now I look at it and go, okay, but what about the here and now? When I wake up today, I have an opportunity to make my day better. I have an opportunity to make something better. I have an opportunity to put a smile on someone's face. And if it is putting a smile on me, then somebody else.
Mark, so right here's where we are, and I wanted to, you're very open about these struggles with depression and your anxiety, panic attacks, your PTSD, and you're telling me what I wanted to know. But I want us to put an explanation point on it for the folks that are listening to this, right? What strategies, and you just kind of gave them to us, but what strategies are you using in support system that help you manage your day? Just regulate your challenges and things like that. What strategies, and I think you may be broad on this, but there's some daily things that you probably do to help keep you on track.
Yeah, no, there's daily things that I do to keep me on track. Is simple things sometimes. And again, it's the simple things that can make anybody's day. It's about, you see what you've done. And again, like I say, something from myself is I get to wake up each day. And the people who do get to wake up each day, sometimes you might wake up and go, oh, I'm late. And then you wake up in a stressful way. But sometimes it's like, and I know it sounds simple, and this is over a 4-year period of trying to get to this stage. This isn't something where I'm saying, right, do this by tomorrow and everything's going to be amazing. But for me, like, the small things are the little small wins along the way in your day, even before you leave your door, even before you go out and go to work. Those little small wins that you do, that you can have a shower, you can have breakfast, you can watch a bit of TV, you can say good morning to loved ones, you can do all these little things. And those little things are things that possibly, if I'm being honest, possibly people do take for granted. I used to. Everybody would take for granted, because it's a given where people can plan for tomorrow and plan for next week and add stress to your life. Whereas realistically, nobody knows what's going to happen next week. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow, because it's not guaranteed. So when you can actually have the guarantee of, now my eyes are open, this is my guarantee, then they're the little things that all of a sudden I think, well, do you know what? I have the opportunity where I always look at it and say, nobody is born a positive or negative person. It's a choice. It's the same with so many things that you lose sight of it, that it's a choice because you think that that's the way you have to be. Whereas now all of a sudden when you bring it all back to realise it is a choice, well then I look at it sometimes, and I've said it 1,000,001 times, why not choose it? And I know, again, I try and make things sound simple. It's just because when you relieve yourself from the stressful life that you might have, these choices anybody can make. And they're the things that I try and say, is that my support system along the way, like I do still have struggles to this day. Like I do struggle with health anxiety still to this day. And there are days that I don't feel like doing anything. And there are days where I'm thinking, oh, not today. But even in those days, they don't last half as long as what they used to, because I accept them. Because I'm going to say, well, it's bound to happen. This is what I've gone through, and I'm okay with it. It's when I used to sit there and fight against it and try and figure out why, and try and fight against it, say, no, this can't happen now and this shouldn't be happening. Whereas now it's kind of like you sit there and just allow it to be, and don't be hard on yourself for it happening, and kind of be more caring to yourself and allow it be that. And then when it is, I've built up enough of a network where I can phone me mum. I can phone some of my close friends in football that understand me that little bit more. I can phone some of my close friends. And as well as that, sometimes I can actually sit with it by myself, because what I used to be scared of being alone and thinking, if something goes wrong, there's nobody here to save me. It's like I almost had to kind of put myself in an uncomfortable position to get comfortable again. I almost had to kind of persevere through something to then get comfortable in it. So it's almost to the point of nowadays, when everything has to be 100 miles an hour and everybody's life has to be so quick and do all these different things, I had to kind of be comfortable or uncomfortable in them days of that. I can't be busy today. I'm not going to be busy today. And I made myself comfortable in my own skin and in my own company to say, well, I don't have to be. This is my life. I live it for me. And when you take your head away, everybody has the life to live it for themselves. You don't have to live it for somebody else. And these are all choices that you can make over a longer period of time that all just become routine and habit, just like everybody builds a habit and a routine, and you can change structures. You build all of them through your life, and you build all of them week after week and month after month. And in those times, you are going to have setbacks. You are going to have times you want to revert back to things that make you feel comfortable but probably aren't great for you. But it's persevering with it and go, okay, that was a little slip up, but don't let that one bit of a spiral turn into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. You just get better with, maybe it might turn into 2, 3 days. And then the next time it happens, it might turn into just a day. And the next time it happens, it might just turn into an hour. So it's constant battle and constant working on it. And it's not just one shoe fits all, because everybody is different. But it's just everybody can appreciate the small victories along the way and the small little things of, as I say, little things that have worked for me, with the whole start of the day with thinking, well, I have been lucky enough to wake up today.
And this all takes you, and I think this is where we are now, and this is really cool because it's kind of like our connections, but this is what's inspired you to transition this professional sports career into speaking and helping others and getting this message out. Obviously, I know the inspiration. I kind of put that down. You have filled me full of positivity and inspiration today, but do you have any of those impactful moments from your speaking engagement now or your radio work that where you know you're making that difference?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's been so many times that at the beginning, when I done the very first interview I done about me anxiety and about health, about me health, about the depression and PTSD, when I done all of that, even about panic attacks, I had people reach out to me that I've been friends with for 20 years to say, oh, that has happened to me before, or this used to happen to me, or Mark, I struggle with this. And when I started to realise it was coming from people that I've known my whole life and I've never known a single thing about it, then all of a sudden I started to speak more openly about the open heart surgery and the effects that had on me. And then through social media, I had people who were going in for the operation. I had people who have just had the operation that were asking me questions, and they were asking me about things of, did you feel this way? Or Mark, what do I need to expect? Or what's going to happen after the operation? All of those things turned into something where that small part of me that I always enjoyed helping people just through football and through school when I was a kid, all just started to come back out. So again, there was a ex-professional footballer that played for the same team as me, and he ended up having to retire due to his heart as well. And it was only last year he had the exact same procedure as me, the exact same valve, has to be on the exact same medication, but I got to be on the phone to him. I got to phone him the night before the operation because I know what it's like laying there. I know what it's like sitting there in the bed and no family around. I know what it's like and the thoughts that go through your head. And I just got to sit with him on the phone. And I remember he was asking me, like, what's the life expectancy and what's this and what's this and what's this? And I said, look, I said, you don't need to know any of that. I said, all you need to focus on is just, you're there now, you're going to be looked after, you're going to have the operation, and that is all you need to focus on. I said, because you're trying to fill yourself with, I need to know, I need to know, I need to know. And I was in that position. And because I was in that position, it actually felt good for me to that. I was that somebody that I wish I had at that time. That's somebody that I was. That's somebody that I probably needed to be on the phone to, that was going through the same thing I went through, and to tell me all the things to kind of look out for, and to kind of be that person to go, well, he's done it, so can I, type thing. I had the opportunity to do that for someone, and it made me feel so good into the fact of going, if I've made that small little bit of an impact to ease his mind about something that I know is going to be so tough to go through, do you know what? It was all worth it. And it was afterwards then I was on the phone to him and I'm speaking with his family, and his family are asking me questions. Like, it actually made me think to myself, do you know what? I am so glad that I could be that person for them, because again, I reverted back to myself going, I wish I had that person for me. But because I couldn't have that person for me, that doesn't mean I cannot or shouldn't be that person for someone else. So when I got to be that, I was more than happy. And I started to just notice then, the more I started to be open and honest and vulnerable about depression, you start realizing how big of a thing it is with people. And you start noticing it a lot more in people. When I start speaking about health anxiety, you start noticing it a lot more about people. And it just gave me that kind of open-eyed kind of feeling to go, I understand people so much more now, to when somebody might say, nah, I'd rather not talk about it, or you've been through worse than me, so there's no point me speaking. It's breaking down all them walls now to kind of say to people, just tell me, look, I've been through hell and back. There's nothing you can say to me that'll shock me. Speak to me. And if talking to me then allows them to just bear something that's been born in a way at them because somebody doesn't understand in their life, that if they can just offload it to me and I can just literally sit with it and go, yeah, look, I've been in that position and I can be that bit of a turning point for somebody, or that little bit of a lean on person for someone, well then, you know what? That to me is a success. Like, it doesn't have to be, again, monumental where I'm changing millions of lives. Like, it's nothing to do with that. It's the fact of going, I could sit in a room full of 1,000 people, and if one person walked up to me after it and says, Mark, I needed to hear that today, well then I'm doing what's right. And it makes me feel good that it gives my life a purpose again. To the purpose I lost through football, and football was my purpose and my only purpose. Now all of a sudden, maybe that next purpose of why I've survived all these things and why I've gone through what I've gone through, maybe my next purpose is to try and help people or help somebody.
Dude, that's what we do, right? We put our story out there to try to just get other folks to turn the door. And you see that with guys, and just us. Sometimes we don't talk a lot about our mental health. So it takes a superstar that is a former footballer that has experienced a lot of life at a younger age, right? That, like you said earlier, a lot of the folks doing open heart surgery have destroy through their lifestyle of overeating and obesity or whatever, and you're this shining light, and you're very inspiring with that. There's a point in time when you take all this and you put this in a book, Game of Two Hearts, which shares your incredible story. So first off, make sure everybody knows where they can pick that up at, and then what's the message that's in your book there that you want folks to take away?
Well, yeah, like the book came about from somebody who approached me saying, "Look, Mark, like the story of your life, I'd love to put it in a book for you." And I got helped out, and it was something I didn't think much of, because I was thinking at the age of 27, who's going to want to read a 27-year-old story who's not really done much in his career? And it was more a lot of self-doubt than anything else gone into it. But I just thought, once I finished football, I was going to say yes to every last opportunity. I was saying yes to everything, and I just thought I'm going to give it the best chance possible, and I'm going to see what happens. And I ended up doing the book, and even that in itself was like therapy for me. It was like something that made me think back to so many different things, good and bad, in my life, and think, do you know what? I'm actually going to be proud of this. And then it got to a point where I was starting to be nervous and scared about it coming out, because I thought, if somebody turned around to me and said, "Okay, Mark, this book was terrible," well, then that's when it would really shatter me, because I'd be thinking, you're talking about my life here. Like, literally, you're telling me my life is terrible. So, like, there was so many different thoughts going on in my mind, but I ended up doing it, and it was something that the response I had from people, it kind of like threw me back a little bit, because it gave them a little bit more of an insight to my life. It gave even my own family a little bit more of an insight to stuff that I didn't really want to tell them or worry them about. And it just allowed people like see me for me. It allowed people to see, look, it's a footballer story, and I'll always stand by it. It's a footballer story where my life was football. But the difference of it is, I just look at it and go, it's a young kid from Ireland who moved away at the age of 15 to go and pursue a career, pursue a job, have difficult times along the way, the ups and downs, and went through COVID, went through open heart surgeries, has gone through depressions and health anxieties. And it's more of a book that I look at and go, if people want to see it as this professional footballer, and I've lived an amazing life, I've lived what you'd call a very lucky life to an extent, to say that I got to be a professional footballer, but I lived a normal life. I lived a normal life to where people will have depressions, and people will have health anxieties, and people will have struggles, and sometimes struggle to go on. And it's more of the fact of the book is there to kind of say, I had this at the ages that I've had it, but if I can go through all these things and still try and carry on with a life for myself, anybody can. Because I'm no different. I'm not this special person that all of a sudden, well, I had a perfect upbringing, and I had this and I had that. Like, I've just lived a life that I got to enjoy what I done, and I got to live the life that, you know what, realistically, anybody, I believe, who can go through ups and downs, it's about just saying, not giving up on yourself. Like, just constantly keep going, because if you keep going and you have that little small ounce of positivity, you have that little thing for yourself to just keep on ticking along and keep on going, well, then anything is possible. And that's the kind of thing that I try and get across to people, that during COVID and during depressions and during health anxieties, it's just keep going and keep finding the right avenue and keep finding the right way. Because you know what? If you're not willing to give up on it, well, then at some stage it will turn. And that is something that I want to prove as an example, and show that it's a guarantee that you can have all these things happen to you. It still doesn't mean you can't smile again, because you will find it again. If you're wanting to find it again, you will find it again. And it's trying to be that way towards people that can read it, to then just think to themselves, well, yeah, look at, he's had all of this, and it's brilliant to see that he was successful. But you know what? There's stuff in there that, yeah, I've had that and I've been through that, and look how well he's doing. I can do it. Not the fact of thinking I'm some superhuman, because I'm not.
We have absolutely threw the script out today. We had some questions, and I was scrolling and I'm like, we've answered every single question. And my last one was going to be, what do you want? What are you, what advice would you give to someone through? You knew that. You've just answered that. And for everyone that's listening right now, rewind this thing about 2 minutes if you're struggling, especially if you're struggling or you want perspective from someone that you're trying to give someone advice, and listen to the last 3 minutes of what Mark just said. And that is absolutely what we all preach. And it's, if you're still here, you can make a difference. Doing nothing does nothing. And that's what you find common. There's many miles between us, but that was our connection. And Mark was like, hey, we reached out, like we just ended up connecting. I think you're like, hey, dude, I heard you freaking say something. I'm like, well, you're one of the few people that can understand me. But it is. And I can't drive that home enough. What I'd like to do, dude, we could go down so many, and I just kind of pushed the questions back away because we've answered them all. But I think we could spend another episode really going down. I've got 3 things in my head that I'd just like for me and you to get back together at some point in time.
Yeah.
And one, but here's where I kind of want to end it with this, because I took some 14-year-olds to play in a state all-star tournament the other day. And I had never got to do it, but I kept saying, this is big, just trying to tell them, like, you're going to go represent your city in our state, and just trying to drive that home to them of what this means to their community, to have their community represented on this stage. And we played 3 games. We lost 2, won 1 though. So we won, and like it was just this big moment for us. You've played at the pinnacle you've played and professionally, but do you have, and this is always the spotlight when people ask me one moment, I always go, I got 1,001 moments, but do you have one moment that is just like you go back to it as your most memorable moment on that field?
I would say there'd be 2. I think the 2 that I can always go back to is the one when I made my debut at 16 is something that it was like that moment of thinking, I've done it. Like I've got to live my dream. But there was also a moment at Newport where everything that I've faced through my career, like with the ups and downs and the injuries and the open heart surgeries, there was a moment that at Newport, I ended up signing here for the 6 months. And this was going back to 2017. The last 6 months of the season, I ended up signing. And through everything that I went through before and the manager not liking me at another club, this was like an opportunity where it was only a 6-month deal. And in that 6 months, if we stay out of relegation, I get a new 2-year contract. But if we get relegated, I don't have a contract. And basically, I'm on the next flight home to Ireland because I didn't have any more options. And I ended up playing from the January all the way till the 6th of May was the last game of the season. And we were drawing the game 1-1. And in that time of drawing the game 1-1, it got to like the last 5 minutes of the game. We were in added on time. And in the added on time, I ended up going up front in the game. And I ended up scoring the goal that saved us from relegation. So that was my, like, this was meant for me moment. That was my, like, one moment in time that everything that I've faced and everything I've gone through, and that one moment of being in the spotlight of thinking this is what it was for, like, that was my moment of going, I've waited on this for so long. This is why I love football. This is why. And once I've had that now, all of a sudden it kind of just made everything that, even if that was the only one moment I've ever had, and I've had so many of them in my career, but then that one moment was kind of like the pinnacle of thinking, I've just saved my career. I've just started a new lease of life at a club now that value me. Now I can start enjoying my football again, because I had periods in between that I just fell out of love with things and felt really down. But this was the one time where I thought, all of this hard work, all of this not giving up, it was for this. And to get to live that, I would live it 1,000 times. And look, there's probably 1 million views of it online, and I've watched all those 1 million views. Like it's literally time and time again. And Like it's always something, and it was my very first professional goal. So it was like it's all coincidental of all them different things, but it was also like, no, that was actually meant for me. Like that one thing was just meant for me, and that's my belief behind it.
Dude, because here's what I tell. Like in the U.S., there's a lot of people that play in the NFL that never score a touchdown. There's a lot of people that play Major League Baseball that never hit a home run. People go to NASCAR, never win a race, right? So there's all these things, and that's what I wanted to drive home. Like you've got to experience moments that, and that's what I was telling my kids on our level. Like you're one of 12 kids going to go represent a city. You know how many other 100 kids like to switch places with y'all? Mm-hmm. You just that moment for you, and I'll get to see them again, and I'm going to, because I know, like talking to you, what that means and I know what it meant for us to win as coaches, but we came in here complete strangers, dude. But I feel like I'm leaving this conversation with a good friend, and what you've shared with me, and just that you share with the rest of the world. But I feel like this will get published, but right now that's mine and your moment, right? And I appreciate you taking time to share all this with me and your struggles, and give me perspective on what your life is like, and so we can use this, you and I, and I'll do some YouTube stuff with it, and we'll get this out there and just reach dudes, right? And reach men and women and couples and whoever that it is that needs to hear this message. That's my whole goal. And then I hope you and I can reconvene as often as we possibly can, just to get to know each other even better.
100%. And that's something that, like you say, we came into as strangers, but it's through the art of speaking, and it's through the art of just being talking and honest, and it just allows people to understand people on a different level. And as you say, like I'm always available, and to stay in touch would be amazing to me. Like it's felt comfortable enough, like to just sit and be open and honest. And as I said, I'm just thankful for everything that you're giving me the opportunity for as well.
We'll flip it around, dude. I'll let you tee me up next time, because it's you hear my sides. I got to do public safety and police work, and got to do a little stint doing undercover work. So where you was focused in 100% surrounded with positivity, I spent a lot of time living in negativity. And so it's really neat, because me and my wife we'll talk about a situation, and we'll both say, or I'll say, sometimes she doesn't say it with me, but I'll say, and I wonder what our opinion would be if it wasn't slanted toward our careers and things that we did, and slanted toward the negative. Wonder if we were like Mark O'Brien, where man was like, hey, I just want to play freaking football, y'all. And, so I'm telling you, man, this I could talk to you for hours, right? Just because I think we just scratched the surface, and we've been going for 2 hours, dude. And it's so cool, because what we always put our athletes on pedestals, and we and the more I've been able to kind of pull that back and go in and work with just like your Navy SEAL guys, what you see with Jason Redmond, and some of the other people that I'm around that they're high performers, is you get to see that they're just people with everyday issues, or they're going through the same struggles, and they're not unique. They're just amplified in whatever area or situation they're in, but they are still trying to find as much positive network as they can to surround themselves. So whether you're the guy that's banging out steel over in the foundry, or you're on a football field, or anywhere in between, man, the more positive people you can surround yourself with, the more that your life is, it just makes a huge difference in your perspective, like you said earlier, because all those doctors told you were dying, but the people around you gave you worst case, but all the people around you is like, you're going to be fine, dude. You're playing football, right?
No, literally. And as I say, I always go back to that one moment of the whole perspective change, was being terrified of open heart surgery, to then know it's going to be something that'll save me life. It changed my perspective to want it. So I just looked at and said my whole perspective changed towards how I live and how I see things. And like, again, like, I'm not always a sunshines rainbow type person, but I know it's a choice I can make to be a positive person. I know it's a choice I can make to do all these things. And once that is an understanding of going, that's in my control. If I want to see the silver lining in everything, I can. If I want to try and see happy in bad situations, I can. If I want to try and be a positive influence on somebody's life, I can. It's not always saying that it's going to be perfect. I work that way, but it's also looking at it to say, well, yeah, but it's a choice, and my choice is to do that. It mightn't be everybody's cup of tea, and that's something you have to live with. I'm never going to change everybody's opinion, or I want to change everyone's opinion. But if that's the choice I want to make and it makes me feel better, and then if somebody else listens and it makes them feel better, well then, do you know what? I'm doing something right. And because that I've had that evidence, and I've had those people that have said things to me before to say that reading things I post or saying certain things or speaking to certain people and just the kind of way that my outlook can be, well then if that's helping loads of other people, well then, do you know what? Then it makes everything worthwhile.
How can people connect with you on Instagram? What's your Instagram handle?
My Instagram handle is MOBryan1992.
And then website.
So basically, I think Instagram and Twitter would probably be the two main, but Instagram is something that it's probably one of my main kind of reach out things, that when people want to reach out onto there, like, my messages are open to anybody to speak to and anybody who follows and stuff like that. So it is really down to that. So 9 times out of 10, most messages or any messages that come through, again, like yourself, through Instagram, it's just something where you can build whatever you want from there. Or if I'm somebody that you just want to offload something onto it and say something really resonated with you, well then I'm the type of person that I'll open my messages to anybody.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And if you head over to Mark's Instagram, click the link in his bio to take you over to where you can get his book. And make sure everyone picks up a copy of that, man, because if the book gives you a dosage of what Mark just dropped on us for the last 2 hours, it's amazing. Got to be an amazing read. Dude, thank you. Thank you for sharing everything with us. Can't wait for you and I to catch back up. And I look forward to sharing and promoting all the good things that you got coming down the pipe. So
100%. Thank you.